All right. Are we saving a seat for Jose? Great. I was going to save this for my introduction about Jose, but the last time I moderated a panel with Jose Andrés, he took his shoes off, walked around the audience, and poured a glass of wine for everyone in the audience. Right. I don't know if that's going to happen again today. All right.
I have to bring a lot of wine.
You do have to bring a lot of wine. So thank you for joining us today for the Restaurants and Real Estate panel. I'm going to introduce my two guests who are here right now. Thomas Keller is the force behind the Thomas Keller Restaurant Group, which began in 1994 when he bought the French Laundry and transformed it into the legendary place it is today. One of the most celebrated chefs on the planet, he is renowned for his culinary skills and his exceptionally high standards. The Thomas Keller Restaurant Group has properties from Napa to Vegas to Miami, and his latest is Tack Room at Hudson Yards. A lot of people don't know this about Chef Keller, but he started as a teenage dishwasher in a restaurant managed by his mother. All right, I crossed this out, but now I'm going to share this since we have a little time to entertain you. Okay. One of my favorite Thomas Keller moments, I was interviewing him in Yountville, and as we walked from the French Laundry to Bouchon, he picked up every piece of litter that he saw. I own a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, and now I do the same, and every time I see litter, I think, if Thomas Keller can pick up the litter, so can I, damn it. So.
Good job.
And then my favorite fun fact about Chef Keller is that he consulted on the film Ratatouille. But we're not here to talk about that today, so. And then next to me, Missy Robbins is the award-winning chef, restaurateur, and cookbook author known for her exemplary Italian cuisine. She is the chef and co-owner of Lilia and Missy in Williamsburg, two of the most celebrated restaurants in New York City. Missy wanted to open restaurants that would appeal to locals, and she wound up with 2 destination restaurants that draw guests from around the world. The James Beard Foundation recognized her last year as the best chef in New York City. She is a good friend and an inspiration to everyone in the Cherry Bomb universe. As are you, Chef. I have to add that. Okay, and then this is one of my favorite fun Missy stories. So just last week, I got a DM from a woman I know casually in my neighborhood, and she wrote, "Hi, Kerry. I see you're away, and this is last minute, and I'm pretty sure they won't have anything, and I'm sorry to bother you, but I thought it couldn't hurt to ask, I need a table for 5, and I thought possibly, Lilia, for tomorrow? Any possible hookup?" This was sent on a Friday for a Saturday night reservation. So if any of you are thinking of sliding into Missy's DMs, you might want a backup reservation. All right, so we're gonna start. With the questions.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So the brief that we received from the City of Tomorrow team was to discuss how unique culinary outposts can anchor a neighborhood. So the only neighborhood that anyone in New York is talking about this week is Hudson Yards, right? So I thought I would start with that. So Chef Keller, we're going to start with you. How do you design a unique culinary outpost for a neighborhood that doesn't exist? What went into the thinking for Tack Room, and can you please tell us about the concept?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Kerry. It's good to see you, Missy. Always a pleasure to be part of something that's going on with you. And good morning, everybody. Hudson Yards, an extraordinary new development. I think everybody's caught wind of it on the west side. Something that Steve Ross and Ken Himmel had first approached me about in about 10 years ago, after we had opened per se, and it became successful. They wanted to curate. They wanted to ask me if I would do the same thing for Hudson Yards, which is curate some of the restaurants, which is really just to go out and try to find some of my colleagues who may be interested in opening a restaurant at Hudson Yards. And we did that fairly well. It certainly was a difficult task, much bigger, much more ambitious, much more costly than anything that we had dealt before at AOL Time Warner Center when that was open. But we did it. I think we did a really good job. Tack Room became part of that, and it's a concept that is born out of a specific era in American history, and that's kind of the era that I grew up in, that baby boomers era. Back then, the great restaurants of America were the continental cuisine restaurants. And of course, the continent that they represented was the continent of Europe. Anything from Italy through Spain, France, Germany, Austria, up to the Netherlands and the Scandinavian countries were represented on their menus. depending on where they were. Restaurants like the Store Club, the Colony, Chasen's, the Brown Derby, the Blue Fox, those were all the great restaurants in America. New York City, on the other hand, was fortunate enough to have some of the great Le restaurants at the time. So they had that great French following here. But typically in America, they were those restaurants where it was really about a social interaction. It was about music. It was about energy. They were always a little bit louder than other restaurants, and definitely fun. And so that was the premise for Tack Room, and making sure that we were able to bring what was a period of American history and something that was represented here in New York, as well as the other great metropolitan cities around the country, into Hudson Yards. Hudson Yards, when we first started talking about it, we wanted restaurants that were recognizable, that were accessible, that their food had reference points to. We weren't looking to try to bring a Perseid, for example, or a Jean-Georges or Le Bernardin into Hudson Yards. We wanted to have restaurants that were more or less be considered neighborhood restaurants, because Hudson Yards is a brand new neighborhood.
So Missy, for you, it's a very different story. You went into two existing neighborhoods. What was your thinking in terms of neighborhood?
Well, I think, when I originally found the space that now occupies Lilia, I knew nothing about Williamsburg. And I had worked and lived in Manhattan most of my career, except for 5 years in Chicago. And I started looking for spaces, and it was going to be my first venture on my own, which is obviously very daunting. And we kept looking for spaces, and there was a real cost issue in Manhattan. I really wanted to be in the West Village. That was my home at the time. This was about 6 years ago now when we started looking. And Williamsburg, I like to say, kind of found me. My business partner asked me to go look at this space in Williamsburg. I very emphatically said, in not such a great way, I'm not opening a restaurant in Williamsburg, with a few expletives in there. I didn't understand what Williamsburg was. Williamsburg to me was something very different, where my 20-year-old cooks were living, and I didn't realize how much it had changed in the last 10 years. And I went to look at the space, which is a former auto body shop, and I luckily have vision and understand design, and saw that this building had really amazing bones. And I started spending more time in Williamsburg before I made a decision, and over 4 months would go every weekend. I kind of looked like a tourist, and we'd walk around and we'd see the people, and I kind of understood that there was something really happening in the neighborhood, and that there would probably be a really amazing clientele there. And one of the things that was really interesting, I had no idea what would happen. I was just praying that I could keep the restaurant alive and that it would do okay, and I needed to go back to work. I had taken a couple of years off, and I really needed a project. And when we opened Lilia, we just got such great response, and like you mentioned, we were able to become a neighborhood restaurant and become a destination restaurant, much due to a lot of the reviews and press that we got, and just sort of word of mouth. But
it's due to Missy's pasta.
Maybe that also. But I think what happened and what we saw happening for us is that we really had an opportunity to become a part of the neighborhood, and that to me became one of the favorite parts of owning Lilia. Aside from having a popular restaurant, we really became part of the community, and we got to know the neighbors, and people would, walk by on their way home and see me in the window at night talking to guests at a table and wave, and I really loved that. And so when we went to look for a second space, we looked all over. We looked in Manhattan, we were approached by lots of people, and we chose the space for Missy in South Williamsburg because we saw that it's really growing there, and there's huge development happening, and we wanted to be a part of that part of Williamsburg too, which is really sort of a different part of the neighborhood. And so it was really about becoming part of communities and adding value to communities.
How do you balance today being a place for locals but being a very serious hotspot?
We just focus on hospitality and being great to anyone who walks in the door. So whether you're our neighbor or someone coming from Australia or someone coming from the Upper East Side, we just want to make everyone feel like they're coming to our house, and that seems to have worked for us.
Great. Chef Keller, I want to take you back to 1992. Ready? So 1992, Chef Jonathan Waxman tells you the French Laundry is for sale for $1.2 million. You famously take a $5,000 cash advance on your credit card to hire a lawyer to help you find investors so you can buy the property. What do you know about real estate today that you wish you knew back then?
You should buy as much as you can. You know, I was very fortunate that at the time, and just to be able to understand the dynamics of Yountville and the French Laundry. It was somewhat of an iconic restaurant already. They'd been out. Don and Sally Schmidt had opened it in 1977, and I purchased in '94. So they had operated for 17 years. It was, you know, for me, it was an opportunity to go into a community which had not yet really been recognized, other than, you know, the French Laundry, and try to set up a restaurant that was going to not necessarily be the most famous restaurant in California or America, but a restaurant that connected to the community and connected to the ingredients of California. And I think that what we have in California are the best ingredients in America, and to be able to source them and to be able to bring them to the menu in a spontaneous way. We change the menu every day, so it affords us a great opportunity to work with our products in the true seasonality of each ingredient, rather than in the 4 seasons that we typically understand.
I want to go back to the original brief that we got for this panel about restaurants as anchors for neighborhoods, you know, because I'm sure all of you in the audience know that when the term anchor is thrown around in terms of real estate, it's often in terms of an anchor tenant. And in the past, the anchor tenant was always a department store, some kind of store. Today, the anchor tenants are restaurants. What's going on in the food world and the retail world at large that shift has taken place?
I think they finally got smart. I mean, you know, and you look at any community and how they begin. It's always with restaurants. I mean, chefs historically have gone to places, as Missy did in Williamsburg. As Missy said, she couldn't afford to open a restaurant in Manhattan, even though she wanted to. She found a place that wasn't even a restaurant. She had to redo the whole thing in Williamsburg. And you can see around any community in New York or any place in the country where chefs kind of set up shop, set up their restaurants, and how that begins to create energy and a thriving community. And so it's really wonderful to see that chefs continue to lead the way in this in developing communities. And you certainly see that now today when you have developments like Time Warner Center, which was opened in 2004, or Hudson Yards, or any of the other large developments that are going around the country. They want to make sure they have the right restaurants in those developments to attract people in the same way that communities do the same.
Missy, why do you think that shift has taken place?
I think people are seeking that. The communities are seeking it. Guests want to be at home and near home, and obviously a lot of New Yorkers don't cook at home. They have small kitchens, and they want a place that they can feel that connection.
Someone said something interesting to me yesterday. We were talking about shopping for some reason, and she said she doesn't go to Paris anymore for shopping. She goes to Paris for food. And I realized so much of what's going on today with brands is you could pretty much get the same clothes now in any country that you can get in any city, major city in America. You cannot replicate great food. So I think that's definitely come into play with that, because is retail not special enough anymore?
That's a good question. I can't really, opine about what retail is doing, but restaurants continue to become, as you pointed out, the anchors of communities, and it's really a wonderful thing, not just for chefs like Missy and myself, but for the next generation of chefs, and setting the example for them. And they can see that they have now the opportunity. I think back in history, and I look back at Frank Stitt, for example, who was from Birmingham, Alabama, who worked here in New York City, but really wanted to go home and open a restaurant. And he was one of those first chefs to actually go to a market like Birmingham, where he grew up, and open a restaurant that's become very successful. And now in Birmingham, they do have a culinary center. Gavin Kaysen recently in Minneapolis came from Danielle Boulud's group and opened his first restaurant in his hometown in Minneapolis, and now he's opened 2 more since then in his community, and it's really begun to thrive and get recognition, and attract young professionals, whether they're on the culinary side or on the service side, to those restaurants, and that's a wonderful thing. So you have all these different options in all these different communities around America, and it's really great for the young chefs and the next generations of chefs.
Missy, I want to talk to you about your aspirations in terms of having, in terms of real estate and having a bigger restaurant group. Tell us about your dreams and your plans for the future.
Okay. Well, I have one that's only 6 months old, so I'm trying to make that one work. Yeah, I think, I'm very sort of calculated in how we want to grow, and I opened my first restaurant when I was 44, which was 14 years later than I wanted to open my first restaurant. I had this crazy goal of opening a restaurant when I was 30, and that didn't happen. I think I was trying to work for Chef Keller when I was 30, and I'm really happy that I didn't open when I was 30, because I think that Lilia would have never been Lilia if I hadn't waited and kind of taken my time to really understand and be able to be not just a better chef and a more confident chef, but a better business person and a better leader. But one of the things I realized, I think when you start your restaurant, you have these big dreams and you look at other chefs and you say, oh, I'm going to have 5 restaurants in the next 10 years or whatever. That's really shifted for my partner and I. And I think what's more important to me is having less that we can do really well, and be happy with those places. And I don't know 100% what that means. I don't have a number on it anymore, like, oh, we're going to have 30 restaurants around the country. I've really enjoyed being in Williamsburg, and Williamsburg is also now my home. And I've enjoyed being a part of that community, and I used to want to be all over the country. For those of you who don't know, I took a job 10 years ago with a Voce, mostly because I got to work under Thomas Keller's per se, and that at the time was really appealing to me. And one of the reasons I took that job was because they said they were going to open all over the world and all over the country. And then I got back to New York, and I was really enjoying being back home. And I don't feel that need. And one of the things that being in Williamsburg has taught me, and opening my mind to going somewhere that was very unfamiliar to me, was to sort of never say never. Because I really thought that the only way for me to be successful was to be in Manhattan, and I've learned that that's not true. So I'll never say I won't open in LA or I won't open in Tokyo, but my goals are a little bit more refined now, where I just want to open places that I'm really proud of, and if that takes 2 years to do the next one or 3 years to do the next one, that's really okay with us, because it's more important that they're done right than that we just have multiples that we can't control.
I hear footsteps behind us. I think that means one thing.
José! We have your seat here. It's got your name. It's got your name on it.
But I am an immigrant and I had to jump over the wall. I'm really sorry.
Chef José, welcome. It's good to see you. I told the audience that the last time I moderated a panel with you on it, we were in Silicon Valley, and you took your shoes off, and you walked around and poured wine for the whole audience. So they're excited. They're excited.
My question is there tradition in taking the shoes off before you pour the wine? Do your sommeliers do that in the restaurants, or what is it? Tell us about that, José. I'm just really curious.
I've not been ready for this.
All right, I have. You can leave your shoes on. It's okay.
Yeah.
I didn't warn you, but I did wear socks under my shoes just in case he made all of us take our shoes off. So.
No. This is New York.
That was
with
California.
More formal people.
All right, so I need to introduce you even though you truly need no introduction. If you need to know one thing about Jose Andrés, it's that he wants to change the world through the power of food. It's tough, right? We can't see who's out there. He wants to change the world through the power of food. He's the chef and owner of Think Food Group, which has more than a dozen concepts from DC to Disney, the most recent being Mercado, Little Spain at Hudson Yards. He is the chairman of World Central Kitchen, which aims to empower vulnerable people in the developing world. Perhaps you saw him on this year's Oscars. Oh, and he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, just that. He is a force of nature. Welcome, Chef Jose Andrés.
Thank you.
So Thomas answered this question earlier, but we had said the only neighborhood anyone is talking about in New York City right now is Hudson Yards. And congratulations, you just opened Mercado there last night.
Well, it's not technically open. Hudson Yards is open. We will be open eventually.
So when you started the planning for Mercado, Hudson Yards was not a neighborhood. It was just an idea and a concept. How do you plan your concepts for a neighborhood that doesn't exist?
Well, you know, Thomas used to be a friend, and now I hate him. Yeah, you can tweet about it. I hate him. I never know why I answer his phone call. But you know, when we began talking, forget Hudson Yards, let me go back. My first experience on a neighborhood that didn't exist. What we know now about as the Penn Quarter in Washington, D.C. Any Washingtonian here? Yeah. Those are the people that their vote doesn't count even if they pay taxes, because we have no representation. So from now on, please support that D.C. will have same representation as you other New Yorkers have, okay? Good. Number one. Yeah, we have no senators and no congressmen that have a vote. Can you believe that? So imagine to live in a city that we have no representation in Congress. So we opened on 7th and E. I arrived there, I am a 23-year-old. And we are about to open. I'm walking the streets, it's 5 p.m. And this very nice looking guy with a very big smile, beautiful white teeth, an Afro-American guy, comes to me and I'm like, I keep seeing him around the neighborhood and will tell me, hey, Chiefy, come here. Here, I have good white powder for your cooking. I'm like, what? Shit, they sell you stuff in the streets in Washington. This is a very genuine city. I was very naive back then. That's the neighborhood I was in. The nicest restaurant in the area was a restaurant called Insect Club, where their menu was insects from around the world. I mean, tough neighborhood to be in. So we opened Jaleo. The only other thing happening there, besides the Insect Club, was the Shakespeare Theater. And then Jaleo opened, doing tapas, where nobody knew what tapas is. People would tell me if I was the bouncer at the door. I'm like, tapas, man, not topless, tapas. I work in a tapas place. No, I mean, I have the body of a bouncer, if you think about it. So that was when I began seeing the power of a restaurant opening in a place that was dark at night, to start creating the sense of a neighborhood. One of the first people ever came through the door is one guy that began telling me about Mao Zedong and Franco. And I was like, man, if this is the type of customers we're going to be getting here, we're in the shits. This guy is really nutty. Well, it took me 2 weeks to find out he was Senator Patrick Moynihan. Senator Patrick Moynihan really was a guy that believed that we had to be investing in the downtowns, in the forgotten cities of America. And there is where really I sense that really a place like Jaleo and many other restaurants around America, that when you open and really you bring something that is used beyond a business, that you bring a heart, that becomes a pumping heart, that becomes a gathering place, that becomes a place that the neighborhood begins feeling proud of. That's where I sense for first time in my life really the power, in this case of a restaurant, to lift up an entire neighborhood. So that was my first experience back in 1993.
Can you tell everyone about Mercado? I got to tour it the other day, and I understand why you hate Thomas. It's quite the undertaking.
Well, at the end was like, or I open a 12-seat restaurant, or I open, 38,000 square foot. Was none in between. Yeah, no, it's not a joke. Like, I don't know what, and I don't smoke. You imagine if I smoke anything strange? It's like, phew, imagine. But when the challenge was there to do something was like a resemblance to a food court, obviously I didn't want to do that. I wanted just to tell a story. I always say that restaurants, to me, they've never been a business. To me, they've been a way for me to have a story to tell. And I tell the stories of the things I know, the things I learn, the things I see when I travel. I think that's what we are, really. We're storytellers. I don't write well, I don't paint well, but I can cook sometimes. So I tell the story through the dishes. So for me, coming to New York with this place, Little Spain, is really doing an homage to there's so many Spanish people and then many immigrants that in one moment in their lives, they had to leave their countries. And they had to leave their countries, and many of them, they open restaurants, even sometimes not knowing how to cook. But somehow is what they knew, and whatever they made home, they transform it into a restaurant. And I saw many of those restaurants that they were from the early 20th century New York, that they arrived and they began opening all across New York and in other parts of America. And this for me at the end was like, let me do an homage to those people. Let me do an homage to the early arrival of Spanish people to America. Yeah, I'm finishing soon. And that's what it is. It's just feeling part of this New York I loved. I arrived first time as a sailor back in 1989. And the ship I came in is a 4-mast Navy ship where the midshipmen train. So imagine 300 crew arriving in New York under the Verrazano Bridge, Lady Liberty, Ellis Island, and we docked right across the street, right in the same line as where Hudson Yards is. So when he called me, Steve Ross, Ken Himmel, this was like a sign. If I'm going to open anywhere in New York, there should be, and should be doing what I always dreamed, that was making Spain have a bigger mark here in New York.
Chef, I'm sure you've read all the press about Hudson Yards. You famously came to America with $50 and one suitcase, and it's been characterized as a billionaire's playground. How do you feel about that assessment? The assessment of Hudson Yards. The assessment of Hudson Yards as a billionaire's playground. You're someone who came to America with $50, and now you have a project there.
Well, I have no $1 right now in my pocket, so I'm not much better off. But it's funny because when I came, I really had $50. I told that story one time and then became this. Listen, I came with a visa in case there's any immigration officer in the audience. We're going through tough times right now. And I don't know what happened with the guy, but he dropped me on 125th Street, around here. Not too far from where we are. So I was like 10 avenues off and 120 streets from the place I was going. And then he dropped me there. I think it's the right place. It's not the right place. And it's a smoke coming out like in the Batman movies. And I have my suitcase that didn't even have wheels at the time. And I'm like, holy cow. So, I think Hudson Yards, yes, there's been a lot of writing about if this is a millionaire's neighborhood. If you really look in, it's apartments that they are affordable housing, as they call it. I think Steve Ross has tried to do a good effort on that. Yes, it's high-end restaurants, but there's a lot of fast food restaurants. Sweet Green, who is one of my favorite salad change, and I know the three founders very well. You can eat a salad there for $8, $9. You can say, yeah, but I can make it cheaper in my home, so make it in your home. You're right. We need to pay salaries. We need to pay rent. We need to pay the ingredients. It's like, in my places, I know that you're going to be able to have a bowl of patatas bravas for $5, $6. And you say, shit, $6 for potatoes. Same thing. Make them in your home. Sometimes it's funny because when somebody says, so the same people sometimes that complains to me that the food I serve is very expensive, is the same people that complains to me that we don't pay enough to the people. Right? And it's the people that want more cheap places. Well, listen, we're going to have cheap places and pay people well and pay health insurance. And I mean, shit, the cost of things are the cost of things. Hold on. Said that, I believe Hudson Yards is going to have a good offering for every type of people to come and be part of it. I know in my places will, and I know in many places that will be things that will be kind of affordable. I never see anybody complaining. You know, where I come from is a country called Spain. You know how much it costs a cortadito in a bar? A little coffee and milk? 75 cents. 50 cents in the old days. Until Starbucks came in. And then it's like $4.75 for a cappuccino. And nobody complains. It's lines. So it's kind of funny how we put value to different things, right? I do believe Hudson Yards, if you really look deep, is creating a lot of jobs. It's bringing a lot of energy. It's plenty of different possibilities from very high end to more affordable. It's affordable housing. Yes, I understand the critics. Probably they have, in some things, their part of right, but we all have our part of right. I really praise Steve Ross for taking the bold decision of creating this magic place in the middle of Manhattan.
Thank you, Chef. Chef Keller, advice you have for any up-and-coming real estate developers in the audience who want to work with someone like you on a project?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We spoke about this the other day. I think that as we just talked about Missy, certainly José, and how restaurants of whatever nature become the heartbeat of a development. You see that in communities. You see that in brand new developments. You see that at Time Warner Center, what it's been doing for the past 14 years, and what that community has become, what was the old convention center, and laid empty for over 20 years, and now how it's really grown. I think it's really important to remember that when we think about developments, we think about the diversity of that development and offering a large range of services and opportunities for whoever you are identifying to be coming to your development. And restaurants are really a big part of that. They are places that continue on into the evening after most of the jobs or most of the retail stores are closed. It creates a vibrancy in the development that no other business would do. So I think that you need to be able to choose who you want very wisely, making sure they have the bandwidth to be able to accomplish what their tasks are, and to develop a restaurant that is going to speak to the community that you are developing for.
And Missy, how about you? Advice for up-and-coming restaurateurs when it comes to real estate and working with developers. What's your advice?
I think it's really important to not bite off more than you can chew and really pick a project that's going to help you be successful. And, you know, like I talked about, Manhattan at the time for me just didn't feel right, and it didn't feel affordable. And as a new restaurateur, I wanted to make sure that first project was a success. And part of that is having the right real estate in the right place for the right finances. So I think you can have this dream of wanting to open in one neighborhood or one block or one street. And I think the thing that I've learned is just to open your mind, and you can be successful other places besides what you might think is the right place. And that goes back to Chef Keller talking about going to Minneapolis, if that's where you're from, and watching Gavin do that. You know, I think New York was really sad to lose a chef like Gavin, but so happy for him that he got to go back and be with his family and have the same kind of success he would have had in New York, or maybe even better.
All right, we have some questions from the audience. Jose, I'll give you this one. I love your cooking, all of you on the panel. Any chance you might venture into the fast casual open all day concept? Chef Jose, could you please bring beefsteak to New York?
Sure. So, listen, beefsteak is kind of the type of restaurant you should never try to open. Because I have one called Pepe, which actually we're opening in Disney, I think today, which is a fast food of sandwiches, a Spanish way. And I hope
Disney, which Disney?
Disney Springs.
He thinks he's not really sure if it's opening today or not. This is how busy he is. I thought I was busy.
But beefsteak really, we created a restaurant where vegetables misbehave. Because vegetables are so tired of being portrayed as healthy and well-behaved. We don't even have a president well-behaved. Why the vegetables should be any different? So that was a joke. So our vegetables misbehave. The potato is peeling herself down Fifth Avenue, and the eggplant is with the walkie-talkies, and and the broccoli is always on the mirror, with her lips. And I wanted to do it because really we've been talking a lot about how to try to bring more vegetables and fruits to the masses, but sometimes feels like it's only talk. And me, I was like, okay, let me try to fail, and in the process, maybe others can see a way where we can have a vegetable restaurant, fast food, 99% vegetables and fruits. So beefsteak is still not there, but we already have I think 10 or 11. We've been partnering with Compass, which is the super big food company that they have a lot of outlets across different businesses across the country. So we opened one in Google. We are opening the second one in Mountain View. In DC, I have 4 or 5. I have Cleveland Clinic. And they're going well, but I realize that it's more expensive to clean a broccoli than used to make a bowl for a burger. No, it's like you try to teach people how to clean broccoli and cauliflower, and it's hard business. The labor on that alone is crazy. But we are getting there. We're almost having a very good conversation with the vegetables. They're being receptive. They are helping us more and more. They understand finally that really we're trying to help them reach more people, and I think they are becoming more friendly to us. And so I really want to praise the vegetables for allowing us to serve the people of America. And I hope that we will have more, and hopefully soon we will bring not only one, because with one, quite frankly, is not worth even trying, but many beefsteaks to Manhattan, New York, and other parts of America.
Next question. What neighborhoods in New York or other cities strike you as the most exciting up-and-coming sites for restaurants? Hypothetically, where would you open today? Well, Hudson Yards. Yeah, Missy, do you have your... I know you said you want to focus on Brooklyn for now, but let's dream for a second. What neighborhoods or cities excite you?
You know what? It's not cities that excite me necessarily. It's places like smaller places, ski towns, is something that I think could be really fascinating. Parks. I spent some time in Park City last summer and kind of fell in love with it. And what better place to put a pasta restaurant where people can ski and finish skiing and then eat carbs. So we'll see. I am really focused on Brooklyn, and I don't think that much beyond Brooklyn right now. I'm really happy there, and I think when you find something that makes you really happy and you can keep building in the same community and there's a demand for it, most importantly, we have pretty long wait lists for our restaurants, which is really incredible, and we can't fill the we can't get all the people in that we want to serve. So if we keep opening in Brooklyn, hopefully we can keep serving those people that really want to come to our places.
I want to very quickly mention Andy Shalal. This amazing guy, lives in DC, he's an artist. He's from Iraq. And he opened many years ago in DC a place I love called Bass Boys and Poets. And he's always able to open in very funky places that nobody else seems to go. And last week, yes, he opened in a place in DC called Anacostia, which is kind of the other side of the river, which is the totally forgotten part of DC. I'm so super envious of him because what he's done is not easy. Because everybody probably is telling him you're gonna fail. You're not gonna make it. The banks are not gonna be too easy on you, giving you loans to pay for the construction and the build-up. But he did it anyway because he believed that was the right thing to do. So I know it's many more Andy Shalals out there and many more restaurateurs and chefs and people that they try to be bold and try to bring the dream of a restaurant, of a business to neighborhoods that sometimes nobody dares even to go. So I want really to congratulate not only Andy, but those bold people who are crazy enough to bring hope to one neighborhood at a time. Also Chef Roy, I mean, what they did in LA, opening in very difficult neighborhoods.
Roy Choi. Mm-hmm.
Roy Choi, what was the name of the place? The name of the restaurant? Come on. Come on, guys. What Roy did with Chef Patterson was
Local.
Was astonishing. They fell on the one, but I know they will be successful again. But those people that try so hard to do what sometimes logic and numbers tells you not to me, those are things that I praise on people. So I only want to mention that.
All right, well, I think we have to stop there on that lovely sentiment. But congratulations to all of you on your success and your new project,
Yes.
Hudson Yards.
So those who you don't know, it's Kerry's birthday. And of course, so we all want to wish her a happy birthday. So who's going to start singing? I'll start. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kerry. Happy birthday to you. All right.
I'll pretend there are lit candles on there. Okay, there we go. Thank you, everybody. I turned 50 yesterday, so it was a big birthday. So thank you. Congratulations on your Hudson Yards projects, and Missy on all your success in Brooklyn. And thank you to
everybody.
the audience.
Thank you.